Hello everyone, I'm Whitney and I coordinate a large online introductory statistics course at Penn State. In this virtual poster, I'm going to be talking about increasing active learning in an online introductory statistics course with low stakes assignments. I think of active learning as instructional activities that encourage or require students to cognitively interact with content. A key aspect of active learning is that the students need to be engaged and thinking. There are many different ways that this can happen, and I view it as being on a spectrum. I do think this could vary between people. These are examples based on how I think the majority of learners respond to different types of activities. For most, listening to a lecture results in a very low level of active learning, so the least amount of cognitive engagement. And at the high end of the spectrum, problem solving. When I taught face-to-face, I would post a problem or two, and in small groups or individually, students would work through them. Teaching online, this looks a little different. Instead of having these synchronous problem-solving activities where everyone is working through the same problem at the same time, my online courses are all asynchronous, meaning students can work on their assignments anytime throughout the week. In my online courses, those problem-solving activities are the low-stakes assignments I'm going to be talking about in a minute. But first, let's look at some of the highlights of the research that shows why active learning activities are important. The first major finding from the research is that active learning increases exam scores. In a meta-analysis of 225 studies that had compared STEM courses using traditional lecture methods to those with active learning, the average effect size was 0.47. That same meta-analysis also found that course completion rates improved with active learning. They found that course completion rates were an average of 12% better in the active learning sections. And finally, active learning can have a positive impact on students' attitudes. This includes more favorable feelings about statistics and greater confidence. At this point, I hope you're convinced that active learning is important and leads to favorable outcomes. There's been a fair amount of research and anecdotal work published on active learning techniques in face-to-face courses. How this looks in an online course can be slightly different. I think it's really important for online students to have the opportunity to practice and to make mistakes that they can learn from without fear of punishment. That's why I incorporate low-stakes assignments. I'll show you two different ways that I've done this. The first assignment my students complete in each weekly lesson is a Wiley Plus assignment. This is really low stakes because they have unlimited attempts on each question. I think it's important that they have those unlimited attempts to reduce some of the fear of failure. Statistics is an anxiety-provoking discipline for many of our students, so anything we can do to bring that anxiety down so they can focus on learning can make a positive difference. The purpose of this activity is to give students the opportunity to work through problems and learn actively. The purpose is not to assess their knowledge because they're still really early in the lesson. In addition to reducing some anxiety, I think it can also help to reduce the temptation to cheat because it takes the focus off of getting everything correct the first time. Another activity that I use in almost all of my classes and my students seem to really appreciate are exam practice quizzes. This is another activity where they get unlimited attempts. I hope this encourages them to try different strategies because, again, there's no pressure to get a perfect score the first time. Again, the goal with this is not to assess them. It's to encourage studying in a more active manner and, in this case, to encourage them to develop some better self-regulated learning strategies. This is my last slide because I'm sure some folks are curious as to how these activities all fit into the grading scheme of the course. They're all counted towards the final grade because if it's not graded, you know most of them probably aren't going to do it. But you can see that in addition to the low stakes assignments, we do have exams, which are usually proctored. The exams are worth half of the final course grade, so in order to finish with an A or a B, they still need to perform decently on those proctored exams. If you're interested in these references or any other information from these slides, they are posted as supplemental materials on the ECOT site. Thanks so much for attending my poster presentation.